Hello and welcome to the program. This is another podcast for The Diplomat, and I am Luke Hunt, and today with me in Phnom Penh is Vin Conklin, who is the country director for the Solidarity Centre. Vim, hello, how are you?
All right, good to be here.
All right, now you've handled a lot of negotiations, represented a lot of workers in Cambodia. Just give us a brief outline of what you do. Inform the audience.
Great. Well, first off, I will say that we assist workers. We don't represent them in Cambodia. We help worker representatives and others. But backtrack, the Solidarity Center is in Australia you might know AFIDA, which is Union Aid Abroad Australia. We're like Union Aid Abroad U.S. Basically, we are the technical assistance arm of the American labor movement that we help foster and promote international labor standards around the world, help partners, primarily labor movements, but also associated human rights and organizations and civil society, work with governments when we can, work with business when we can, to promote labor standards, workplace equality, equity, a range of issues in the world of work.
Right, now, and of course, we're living in the age of COVID. Cambodia is doing it very hard at the moment. We're both living in lockdowns, and we're able to record this because we happen to live in the same block. Big clients of yours, if that's the appropriate word, is the garment sector. Hundreds of thousands of Cambodians work manufacturing garments. How are they coping with COVID? And how do you see the industry shaping up? It's extraordinarily difficult times.
Yes, as you're right. It's not just in Cambodia. It's around the world. Obviously, as you know, the garment sector. It's a sector we work in. Is struggling. From anywhere from obviously order placements, lack of orders, to actually physically having factories running. The whole occupational safety and health issues around COVID, so yes, it's a.
How are the workers? I understand they're on half pay now.
Yeah, they are. It's been incredibly difficult this past year. You think about the first wave that hit in Cambodia, factories closed down, suspended work. Workers only got a certain amount of pay. This is last year, right?
Yep.
Go forward, there seemed to be there was a period, as you know, in Cambodia where it seemed that things were going well in Cambodia.
Yep.
And the factories were running. Orders seemed to be up. I mean, once the economic hits happened around the world, people got sorted out in the consumer economies around the world.
Right.
Orders might have gone up, and but still, it's been very hard. There's a lot of hardship this past year, and then to get hit again starting in February or so, and for the past few months, it's been very difficult. From a range of issues, from the economic issues to uncertainties to health concerns, etc. Yeah.
Just to put audiences in the picture. Cambodia had emerged relatively unscathed in the first year of the pandemic. In fact, it had only recorded about 450 cases. But then there was the third community outbreak, which has been traced to two Chinese women who breached quarantine on February 20. Since then, the numbers have gone from 450 odd to more than 12,000. The record high was on Thursday, that was 880. And so people are quite fearful here. A lot of people have gone back to the villages, and the factories have pretty much stopped production, in nearly all places, I would imagine.
And I think, in the lockdown areas, they have stopped production. You do have, the garment industry, as you know, is located around Phnom Penh, in Phnom Penh and in the provinces around Phnom Penh, called Kandal or Kampong Spa or Kampong Chenang. But they also are spread out to Sihanoukville, along the way to Sihanoukville, and also down towards the Vietnamese border with Soi Ring and Bavet. So you do have a certain amount of factories are spread out, and some might be in production that are not in lockdown areas.
Right. Have the garment manufacturers, have they done enough?
I think they're concerned. The GMAC, which is the Garment Manufacturers Association, I think they're working with UN agencies such as WHO and also Better Factories to promote education about safe work, and as well as promoting vaccines, the necessity of getting a vaccine.
Sure, and the big distribution points when you have thousands of people.
Yeah. But there's also a lot of skepticism too. There's a lot of hesitancy,
right,
I think, among people of getting vaccines as well. So I think there's a lot to overcome.
How hard are they doing it? I know I've asked this question before, but we've had stories coming out of Cambodia of people starving, which I think is a little bit over the top. There's certainly issues with food distribution amid the lockdowns. How are the garment workers doing, being locked down, I guess, in their own housing, which a lot of it's not great?
Yeah, no, I think it would be difficult. I think the markets have closed down in lockdown areas, and to think about this as Cambodia as a country where people go out and buy fresh food on a daily basis or every other day, not to have that access to markets means, there's within a vacuum people do fill it up, and you do have vendors selling vegetables and things, but prices are higher.
Right.
I think it's so when you're worried about your money and you're getting paid sort of half wages, or it just adds to a lot of uncertainty. A lot of people are probably eating instant noodles, other cheaper foods that don't have as much nutritional value, etc. You can do it for a short time, but you don't want to do it for long periods of time.
Sure, and I guess half pay would be the equivalent of about maybe $100 a month.
Yeah, around that, because you also don't have overtime as well.
Right, and
think
also,
about that,
and then on top of that, a lot of the garment workers are responsible for funding the families back home.
Yeah, funding the families, as well as there's a lot of personal debt families have, and one way they pay the interest off, is from the garment workers' salaries that they send home. Now the government has asked lenders and things for debt forgiveness, or to postpone debt. Hopefully that happens. Also rents too, that they ask landlords either to certainly not to increase rents during this time, but also to, if possible, to lower rents or to postpone rent payments. But depends on the situation of a landlord. I mean, they may be relying on the rent money as well.
Right. While we're on the subject of garment manufacturers specifically, just as the pandemic was starting to move, the European Union withdrew trade preferences for Cambodia, and people were saying then, I think could cost the country maybe $1 billion. But then the pandemic on top of that, and then now this outbreak, which is proving extraordinarily costly. Where does that leave workers in Cambodia, in particular the garment manufacturers? How do you negotiate? Can you negotiate? What do people need? What are they going to be looking for from their employers?
Well, I think it's correct that the suspension of the EBA benefits and everything but arms benefits it was a long time coming.
Right.
And we saw that it was coming. Once it was approved, then it was going to move ahead till. But the thing is, you didn't see those impacts right away because obviously of the COVID, the first round of COVID that came forward. I do think it has hit the industry to a degree. I mean, it's not that exports have stopped to Europe; it's that they're now more expensive. So Cambodia has lost a competitive edge as a manufacturing base compared to other countries. But at the same time, Cambodia is considered it's considered a good manufacturing base. There are a lot of brands who've made commitments here. It's lost some production, but at the same time, in some ways it might have gained other production that might move from other manufacturing countries as well. Right. So it's hard to sort of, and given the turmoil this year, it's very hard, I think, to disaggregate the impacts of the EBA suspension.
I think also what I'm getting from that is that I think a lot of people were under the impression that this country was heading for a transition anyway, and then COVID's come along, and on top of EBA, and it's either caught them short, made them think. How do you see the industry going forward?
Yeah. Well, I think there's things about garment industry around the world is that it is transition. I mean, some countries It's there for 20, 30 years, sometimes longer. Some countries have graduated out of, say, Thailand, which is a neighboring country.
Mm-hmm.
The garment industry there is only as a shadow of what it was, and it's basically exists now because of either high-end or niche market goods, or because of migrant labor. I mean,
Right.
So basically, it's been replaced by many other export sectors in Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
Cambodia, I think they want to diversify. Certainly, the government has they've created more special economic zones, but they have a few obviously limiting factors. One is, if you say, well, we want to export more electronic goods or electrical goods, right?
Mm-hmm.
That means you're taking that production from somewhere else, right? And then you have to attract investors.
Mm-hmm.
And now, and what do you attract them with? So, and I think, but what you don't want to be is just that low wage or lowest wage tier,
Right?
Because that really is an inescapable trap. So I think workers don't really benefit from paying wages. So I think Cambodia has worked up. I mean, it's done a good job on the minimum wage front for workers, the garment workers. There's no question. But I also think within the garment sector itself, you've seen a transition from just apparel to more footwear, and certainly with the expansion of the what's called travel goods sector, luggage, things like that, which is in some ways a higher value. Can be higher value added production. So I think that's expanded as well, and that's absorbed some of the loss from the apparel sector as well.
Right.
I mean, but again, that may be here for a while, and then it may move on to somewhere else. It's expanded in Cambodia because of some trade benefits Cambodia gets from the U.S. government under the Generalized System of Preferences, which is a system of trade benefits that the U.S. government gives to developing countries around the world on certain categories. Traditionally, garments are not in that category of benefits, but Cambodia was given a special exemption or a special status for travel goods, and that has led to a lot of U.S. manufacturers sourcing travel goods from Cambodia.
Okay. What other sectors in the country do you think could blossom if we can get through?
Well, I mean, it was set to expand, certainly types of tourism.
Right.
You had new hotels coming here. You certainly had an increase of numbers of tourists from Asia.
Yep.
But also, I think Cambodia was set to look at the tourism throughout to Cambodia, not just Angkor Wat, but other parts of Cambodia. I mean, obviously, they've been hit badly, as have other countries that have tourist sectors. But those hotels are there. They may not be going anywhere, so that's good. It's looking, I think, to one potential area could be actually along the Thai border. It's created new special economic zones there.
Sure, around Poi Phet.
Yeah, and actually to manufacture components that can be used in, say, the Thai auto industry in the Eastern Seaboard.
Right.
And other electronic goods. There's that potential there too. I think one sector that Cambodia's been very good at developing over time is bicycles.
Yeah, it's done extraordinarily well. The Chinese had a monopoly on that.
Yeah.
It's like
but again, a lot of these came through the EU. I don't know if they're under the everything but arms, but I don't know if that's still. But Taiwanese companies here that are also make some of the. Have cornered the market in a lot of components and things like that.
Electronics
but also bicycles. I was thinking bicycles.
Okay.
Yeah. But so there are. I think they are trying to expand. I mean, I think there's as people know, Cambodian workers are quick to learn. They're quick to they're committed. But at the same time, they do, and you have new generations that have higher literacy, which I think are important as the education system improves here. I mean, there still is a bit of a drag on in terms of if you're looking at the profile of say older Cambodian workers who may not have those literacy skills.
Right. They did spend probably the first half of their lives embroiled in a war.
Yeah. Through the 1990s, yes.
Sure. It has improved definitely over the last 20 years.
Through the 1980s up until about 91. That's what I meant.
Sorry. A bit later than that too. But anyway, now you've spent the last 12 months in Australia stranded with COVID. Now you're back here in Cambodia. You've got a first world response to the disease, which the Australians were kind of applauding themselves with having zero COVID almost at the moment. How do you compare the response in Australia with a country like Cambodia, which still ranks among the poorer nations on the planet?
Yeah. Look, I think what Cambodia is experiencing now, it would have experienced at some point because of the new variants. They may have escaped the first waves of COVID, but the variants that are coming out of the UK, certainly India now, South Africa, Brazil. I mean, they're going to be in waves. So I don't think any country is going to be unscathed. So there's nothing wrong with what Cambodia is going through now. It's almost a non-preventable cycle in a way. But the government has responded, I think, in a very systematic way given the limited health facilities and health system, which people know here. They've done a very good job at securing vaccines, both through the COVAX facility, the AstraZeneca, but also through the two Chinese vaccines. This relationship with China,
Sinopharm and
Sinopharm and Sinovac, and they're promoting a very widespread campaign. I mean, you hear about they want to vaccinate everybody in Phnom Penh, and so I think you compare that to a country like in Australia, which is like, all right, they're seemingly sitting pretty now with relatively few cases. Occasionally there's an outbreak like you had in Western Australia the other day, but they close it down, they can deal with it. But there's no vaccine. There's very little vaccine rollout in Australia. So they are, at the present, they're doing well. In the near future, they could actually, given the spread of variants that are incredibly contagious, they could rapidly get widespread outbreaks in there.
I should just point out that Cambodia has inoculated 1.2 million people out of 15 million in the space of just a couple of months, which compared with Laos and Thailand, where they're also getting record numbers of confirmed COVID-19 cases, they've done extremely well. The other countries have done quite poorly, if I can say that, and not get in trouble.
But Cambodia's number, I think they said it's the third best in Asia in terms of inoculation.
It's been a good response. Given Cambodia has centralised manufacturing, 300,000 odd garment workers alone. Is that right?
Upwards. At a peak, around 800,000.
Oh, well, I beg your pardon. Now, how closely have the Cambodian unions been working with the government in regards to the inoculation program? I mean, it's been very successful in organising that many doses for that many people. It's not an easy feat.
I think the unions and, manufacturers and others have been trying to work closely with the government. There's some unions that are more, like in a lot of countries, are affiliated to the political parties, and they've been probably working very closely. But I think other unions as well, they're educating their members, they're encouraging their members to go. Also working with the Ministry of Labor. I think a majority of our staff got vaccinated through the Ministry of Labor. And when we were there, we saw unions with their members there as well. So I think that's going ahead.
Cambodia is a highly politicised country. Its politics gets covered a lot. There's been issues with Sam Rainsy, the opposition leader abroad, calling on people to revolt, which I think is a bit of a stretch of the imagination given what's going on. Have you seen sort of less politics at the moment, or kind of people in the bureaucracy and the government and the unions, I guess, as well, as saying like this is what's happening with COVID-19 is bigger than the sort of day-to-day politics, and we need to get on with it and try and fix this?
I think people do, or the matter at hand. I mean, I think I think workers want to work. They want factories reopened, but at the same time, they want safe workplaces. And I know it's been a priority of the government and manufacturers to get factories up and running. Even now, you heard of that factories in the quote-unquote yellow zones in Phnom Penh, which are considered relatively safe, whatever, still a curfew, but
the government. Just to point out, the government's divided Phnom Penh into yellow, orange, and red zones. Red zone being the hottest zone where COVID outbreaks have been detected, then orange, and then yellow, and people are living under different types of restrictions depending on what zone they're in.
Yeah. So I think So I think those. So that it said factories in these yellow zones could reopen.
Mm-hmm.
Workers have had vaccines, and there's safe social distancing and workstations within these factories. I know it's a cost, but it's also something that I think has to be done. So as they go forward, I think there's ways, and I think there's an opportunity too to think about how you can create better working environments. As you know, in Cambodia, you have some very good factories here. Companies have invested a lot of money, and you have a lot of fly-by-night factories. Basically,
Cambodia is notorious for them.
Basically, people here for tax benefits,
right.
And there's a shed or big sheds and works rows of sewing machines but really nothing in terms of investing in very good and state-of-the-art practices in terms of the garment sector or whatever. And I think this is possibly an opportunity to maybe revisit that. Hopefully that if factories have closed, it's maybe those that are not the best employers, and maybe the best employers will stay on, and you'll have at the end of the day you may have a net loss of jobs,
right.
But at the same time you might those that are staying will be better jobs.
So what we're kind of looking at, I guess, is an enforced rationalisation of the industry brought about by COVID.
Yeah, I mean, this is speculation. We have to see the rollout, but that would be one area. But I think right now people are just focused on getting people vaccinated, making sure that garment factories are safe, making sure garment workers themselves are addressing their current needs, which is I think it's the economic hardship, as we talked about before, is there front and center.
Right. And of course, hotels and tourism are another big employer in the country. How concerned are you about that sector? Angkor Wat's closed. They're talking about maybe reopening it for foreigners in the fourth quarter of this year. What are your chief concerns there?
Well, it's one. I mean, one is a loss of human resources. I mean, one of the things about hotels, the tourism, and what makes it a vibrant sector in any country are the people working in it.
Right.
Whether it's English, not just English skills, but the soft skills, the social skills, problem solving, dealing with the tourists and things. So you hate to see a loss of people from that. The other thing is even if tourism comes back, you have the whole issue about quarantine. What do you do about that?
Right.
I mean, maybe there'll be like inoculation or vaccine passports as they talk about, but still.
And Cambodia also, it's a little harder here because there are no long-distance flights, and most people, if you're coming from Europe, Australia, America, New Zealand, you need to get a second flight into the country, which just adds to the cost and adds to the quarantine.
Yeah, well, also you have the increasing numbers of Asian tourists. So you do have, I would say, flights from Korea, Japan, but certainly China. And so, but then you have to have controls. You have to have people coming in. Yeah, you want greater numbers of tourists coming when the things open up, but at the same time, you obviously want to maintain safety. You don't want COVID outbreaks.
Right.
That would then shut things down again. And I think that the worst thing that can happen is you open up too soon, and then you have to close again. And I think that's really hard for. You see that around the world, like restaurants and other venues. They don't want to reopen and close again. That's even harder than not. That's even harder than not opening.
Sure. And then you get staffing issues, and the government's been quite appropriately has been urging Cambodians basically to return to their villages where they're largely self-sufficient. They live off the land, grow rice, catch fish. In fact, they can look after themselves better than most Westerners, I would argue. How hard is it going to be to get people to want to come back to Phnom Penh?
It's one of the things.
Siem Reap.
Well, it's one of the things we've been actually working with unions to actually maintain contact with their members and get information out to them, continue to liaise with them. Those hotels with unions often were able to bargain for various settlements or suspension wages or various benefits that can keep them going. Right. So I think in some of the larger hotels and things, I think those workers are probably better off than, say, non-union hotels, where basically they've been let go or they don't have, they can't access suspension wages, etc. You know, they're informal networks here. And obviously with the smartphone use around the country, I mean, people keep in touch. But you know, you hope that you know, hotels and other tourist-related sectors, because it is. Oh, it's a wide sector. I mean, if you think about all the support services, everything that they do, those jobs are there for people. You know, provided that workplace reopens. You know. Right.
I mean, it's extraordinary. I was in Siem Reap recently. Angkor Wat was deserted. We were actually up in the Kulin Mountains. It was a fantastic trip. There was no one else up there but us in the mountains, which was fantastic. But Siem Reap is looking very sad. Everything's closed. They've gone into their own lockdowns there. I guess it's a guessing game over how long this can last. But assuming the vaccination rollout goes as planned, which means herd community of perhaps 10 million people by the end of the year, how do you see 2022 shaping up? Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Well, one is you hope that the domestic sector comes back. You always want a domestic economy.
Right.
You want things to emanate from not just foreign investment or foreign tourists. You also want domestic tourists. You want domestic consumers,
local organic growth.
Oh I mean, because basically that's your most sustainable and long-term group. Is so. Hopefully, people will be able to travel more within Cambodia. Hopefully, if other ASEAN countries can learn from Cambodia or get their vaccines in order and policies and testing and things, then maybe there could be like travel bubbles, etc. But again, there has to be, you know, it only takes a few breakdowns of a system that then you can erase all the progress. So
it's back to square one kind of thing. There was an ADB report, Asian Development Bank, came out the other day suggesting that the Cambodian economy will recover in 2021 and accelerate.
This year.
And accelerate next year. I think that was being a bit hopeful. Admittedly, the work was probably done before the latest outbreak, but the outbreak had been going for a month before they released the report. Do you think they were being a little too optimistic?
Probably, because I think the impacts on, because you have immediate impacts and then you have middle term and longer term. And I think the middle term impacts will have to shake out a bit. So I think certainly people can go back to work. Maybe garment factories will reopen. Maybe the hotels and opening via the restrictions and things. But people are going to have accumulated debts. Think about rent payments that may have been put off, other types of payment. So there's going to be a lot of people may not have a lot of whatever spending money they may have had, obviously. In a normal year, it can be used up very quickly. Just paying back, and
they won't be splurging.
So I think that's also sort of one of the effects that's going to have to, what to see.
Right. Okay. People are going to have to deal with that in the short term. So maybe 2020.
No, you hope maybe
4, 5.
No, well, you hope the last quarter of this year is better. You hope that next year, going into next year. People want to move around. There's a natural movement in the country. There's internal migration. There are people going from villages back to cities and urban or industrial areas, etc. Is that natural flow, right? There's also the importance of cross-border migration. I mean, there's the jobs in Thailand are very important for a lot of communities in Cambodia. And so
I think it was 120,000 people came back. From Thailand.
And that money's not coming in as remittances, right? And those communities are relying. You have obviously a lot of flow on the Vietnamese border too, and maybe that's a border that may, given if Cambodia and Vietnam can reach agreements, maybe that border might be open sooner than the Thai border. So who knows?
Perhaps a travel bubble between here, there, and maybe Laos.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. That's the policymakers, but you're hoping that happens. I mean, you see Australia, New Zealand. They're talking about Australia and Singapore to a degree.
And Singapore and Hong Kong is being discussed as well.
So we'll see how these corridors. I mean, obviously there's travel ongoing, but nobody wants to spend a lot of time in quarantine. having
indeed, no one's going to spend a month in quarantine. Both ends for for a week on the beach.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, that's a real disincentive, I guess, for a lot of people.
All right, Vin Conklin. Look, thanks very much for coming in. Always good to chat, and hopefully things will improve.
All right. Thank you. Cheers.